Hello folks, welcome to Food by Dobbers, another episode of Back to Basics. So, I'm going to show you how to shuck some oysters. A few tips, tricks and things that I've learned along the way. Stay tuned, I've got something incredibly crazy to show you. And yeah, watch to the end, you'll have some fun. Ooh la la. Ooh la la. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to show you how to set up a little tray when you've got a shuck bulk amount of oysters. So here we have our little tray. Now we're going to get some aluminum foil, also known as aluminium foil. And what I'm going to do with this is run this up against my body and just scrunch it in a nice little concertina manner. Now the reason we do this, you're getting ripples in the aluminium foil for this. When you shuck an oyster, that's the way an oyster grows. So as it grows like that, all the seawater filters through. When you take an oyster out of the water, it still has seawater inside of it. So if you store an oyster this way up, what eventually is going to happen, gravity is going to do the work and drain all that beautiful seawater coming from the ocean of where this was grown. It's going to leak out. The oyster's going to die and the oyster's going to go stinking. What we like to do in the restaurant game is store oysters the same way they grow. So hence why I've got this lovely little piece of concertinaed aluminium foil, and then like so. All those little ridges, divots and bumps help the oyster to stay that way up. That's a little trick, that's a little tip, that's for you for free folks. So now, there's many different ways to shuck oysters. I'm going to show you a few of them. I'm going to show you my personal favorite way. I'm going to show you a couple little things. Okay, have you ever shucked an oyster with another oyster? I never have, but we're going to give it a go today, see if it works. Okay, so first things first, there is the classic bench technique. So we've got a tea towel, we fold this over, fold it over one side like that, and then we fold it over again and again. What we've done is we've created a little clamshell out of a tea towel. What this does is holds the oyster nice and steady so you can go in through the back. Come on in close here folks. Now all we're going to do is bury our oyster shucker into the very back part of that shell there, okay? And then with a nice little wiggling side to side motion, we're just going to loosen that shell off the back end of the other shell. Give the knife a little bit of a wipe. Now that's loose and it's popped. You can see right here, the oyster connects itself to the top shell round about there. So what we want to do folks is with our little oyster knife, running the oyster on the top side of the shell nice and gentle, just until we release that little bit of muscle that's connecting the top shell. Now if I've done this right, the top will be perfectly intact, just like it is here. Okay folks, you have one gorgeous little oyster. Now all we're going to do there, a little presentation method, just go down the side, the other connection point, stick our little knife in, turn him over, and you've got an absolutely stunning little oyster. Now once again, your aluminium foil holds the oyster upright, doesn't let it fall over, keeps all the juice in the shell where it's meant to be, and there you go. Next things, we have the handheld technique and method of shucking an oyster. Now, this is my personal favorite of shucking oysters. I find personally for me, you can do a lot more volume by shucking through the shell, through the front of the shell, held in your hand. It's not for everyone. Realistically, you get a much better finished product like this, but sometimes you're looking for quantity over minimalistic quantity. Not everyone's gonna like that, but hey, it's the truth. When you're working an oyster station by yourself and you gotta shuck 100 dozen oysters between 4 and 6 o'clock, you're looking for any means necessary to get ahead, folks. Them's the breaks. Next thing's next. I've folded my tea towel into a nice little square. I'm going to hold the oyster with the front facing the ground and the back facing the roof, like so. Then with our oyster knife, where that muscle is that connects the two shells is round about here. So all we're going to do, we're going to pick the closest lip to that muscle, and then with our knife, a quick wiggle from side to side. And what we're aiming to do is get the oyster knife into the oyster and release it from the top part of the shell right there. Just like so. Done. That oyster is released. We clean the top part of that shell up, lift that off like so, and then once again, if you've done it correctly, that top little part of the oyster, which is attached to this part of the shell, won't be broken, won't be damaged, but however, you've got a tiny little chip there. And that's what some people don't like, folks. So once again, we're just gonna go straight in, remove it from that part of the shell, turn him over like so, and there you go. You've got another fantastically beautiful little oyster. Now, there comes a point in time when you don't have an oyster shucker. How are you gonna open an oyster without an oyster shucker? What, you're gonna smash them on a rock? This is a little technique that I've learnt along the way. It's got me out of a bind many times, folks. It's how to shuck an oyster with a bread knife. Unfortunately, it doesn't work on all oysters. Let me give you a good example. Oh, I don't really have any good examples here. Oh, this is a good example. Okay, so now when I say it won't work with every oyster, have a look at this oyster and have a look at this oyster. Can you notice the difference between the two? Now, this oyster is nice and flat at the back. This oyster has a little horn. Now, this one is gonna be incredibly hard to shuck with a bread knife, whereas this one, it's gonna go straight through. So, what we do here, get our little tea towel in our hand. We have the back of the shell pointing to our fingertips. We have the front of our shell pointing to our wrist. Then, with our bread knife, all we're going to do is slide that bread knife in the very back part of the shell like so. And then, using this part of your hand to hold it and your fingers as leverage, we're just gonna work it through, folks. So ready? And there you go, folks. She's in. Then, once again, once that's through, release that off the shell. Now, she's a bit mangled, but hey, we're shucking an oyster with a bread knife, guys. What else do you expect? Okay, so once again, and there you go, folks. Well, you know, it's not pretty, it's not perfect, but sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures. You can use a paring knife, you can use a boning knife if you want to be an absolute savage. I use a bread knife personally just because it's what I feel the most comfortable with. The choice is yours, folks. Now, lastly, I've never done this before. I've always wanted to try. Let's try and shuck an oyster with another oyster. Okay, I don't know how this is gonna go. We're gonna give it a red hot crack though. So we're gonna try and use the same bread knife technique with this oyster shell and see if this works. It's probably not gonna work, but hey. Oh. Oh, come on you're so close. I don't think this is gonna work, folks. It's either gonna work or I'm gonna slice my fingers open, or both. Okay, let's try a different technique. Ready? Let's try the bench and the folded technique. If this works, I'm making history, folks. Come on. Oh! You are kidding, folks. Oh, get in there. Well, folks, we've mashed it a bit. Shucking an oyster with another oyster. Fucking ooh la la. Well, there you go, folks. That is my little how-to on oyster shucking. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learnt something. Ooh la la. Cheers. Oh my God, Jesus, so salty. Amazing, but salty. Woo! It's like going to the ocean and getting hit by a huge big wave, but deliciously refreshing. Ooh la la. Ooh la la.